But let's do this first. Let's bring in our think tank. Joining us, we've got a great crew. Ecleynne Mercy, criminal defense attorney, is with us. Family law attorney and law professor Randy Kessler, and criminal defense attorney David Schnipper. Welcome to all three of you. First of all, Ecleynne Mercy, when you hear the words prosecutorial misconduct, what comes to mind?
Ooh, that's worse than a Brady violation. It's devastating to the prosecutor's case. Once you get that, if you can get a motion granted, that's it. You're writing that to a not guilty. It's devastating to the state's case.
All right, David Schnipper, are these fighting words from defense counsel? Once you say, okay, there's prosecutorial misconduct in this case, have the guns been drawn?
Absolutely, because you're calling in somebody's character is what you're doing, and it's we as attorneys and defense counsels take an oath to be ethical, and 100% it's calling someone's character, and that they're doing something in bad faith, and it's something that's deceitful, and not only, as Ecleynne mentioned, that it could be very detrimental to their case in chief, but it could be, be brought up in charges with the state bar, and you could really, screw up your career. But yeah, when you call on someone's character, that is definitely putting on the gloves, and it's getting dirty now.
All right, Randy Kessler, professor, take a listen to the prosecutor's objection to all this. The prosecutor is saying, at all times, the Madison County Prosecutor's Office has acted in accordance with the Idaho Rules of Professional Conduct and has strived to seek justice in this case while acting in accordance with its duty to protect the rights of the defendants, Chad and Lori Daybell. What do you think is really going on here? Is this posturing? Is this a maneuver? Or do you think this is going to be a legit issue here?
So there's a lot going on there. Of course, that's what they'd say because that's what they believe. And if, they know it's being recorded, so why would they record themselves doing something unethical?
Wait, Randy.
Yeah.
Let me jump in there.
Yeah.
I don't think he knew he was being recorded. The recording was made by the attorney for the witnesses, and he says under Arizona law, which is where these recordings were made, you're allowed to do that, and it was
one person.
So it was the attorney for the witnesses who provided these recordings to the defense attorneys because he was like, something's just not right here.
Interesting. Well, it still doesn't change the fact that they're going to have to take this tactic. You pull out everything you can as a defense lawyer to try to protect your client, right? And this is something that if it goes up on appeal, you can't, after the fact, say, Court of Appeals, this prosecutor, well, he acted in bad faith. You have to raise the objections at the first possible chance that of possible misconduct. So if there's possible misconduct, you've got to raise it now or forever hold your peace. You can't do it later after the fact and say, in hindsight, I guess I should have done that. So that's really what's going on. It also makes the prosecution look bad to the judge. It also makes the prosecution have to be very ginger and gentle in the examination of the witnesses. They can't say, look, like we talked about beforehand, it's not a good thing for the prosecutor, but defense has to use it. If they've got this, I don't know if it's going to be granted. If the prosecutor really thought he did something wrong, they would withdraw and they'd say, let's get substitute prosecutor in here and let's do something about it. They're defending their own honor and their own integrity and their case.
All right, let's do this.
This is not the end.
Let's do this. I've got the transcript here. I'm going to read little pieces of the transcript. Again, this is almost like doing a cold read, but I'll read a short portion, then give me your gut reaction to what you're hearing if you think it's going to be a problem for this prosecutor. And we'll just go around the horn. So we'll start with David Schnipper. This is the prosecutor, Robert Wood, saying, welcome to Chad Daybell. So what I want, Summer is the witness, I have my own opinions of him, don't get me wrong. Then the prosecutor says I bet you do, he is highly manipulative. And then Summer says, yes, he is. Then the prosecutor says, I'm not going to say he's highly intelligent, but you don't have to be highly intelligent to be highly manipulative. Is there a problem with that? What's your gut tell you, David?
I don't necessarily think there's a problem with it. That's his opinion based on the evidence and based on what has been shown and what has brought charges against him. I don't necessarily think that would come under prosecutorial misconduct.
All right, let me
So
get to the
answer
next
is
one.
no.
I got a bunch, David. I'll get a bunch. I'm going for your gut reaction here. We're going to go clockwise. Ecleynne, the prosecutor says, we have enough evidence to prosecute him. We do. But the case against your sister is stronger. But I just want to give you that background. That's the kind of context that we see this guy. Came in here and, not making excuses for anyone, but kind of blew up this situation. And he did not care who died. Is there a problem there, Ecleynne?
Well, yeah, this ain't therapy. What do you? I can't. You're supposed to be asking questions, not filling them up. This is what happens in interrogation rooms. This is why people get locked up for life on false charges. Is because prosecutors have this colorful language that implants their ideas in these witnesses, and it's a problem. So, I mean, even the appearance of impropriety is a problem. And this is pretty awful,
Okay.
if I do say so myself.
All right. Randy Kessler, I got another one here. The prosecutor, again, Robert Wood, saying he did not care at all. And the other thing I can tell you is your sister truly believes that everything she's done has been in righteousness. And then Summer says, I know. Then the prosecutor says, I know. I'm kind of using LDS speak.
Could you see Vinnie Politan having this conversation with a witness when he was a prosecutor? No way. No way. This is the prosecutor saying, who's going to be the one testifying? It sounds like he's the one that's going to be testifying. Certainly, this is not the kind of thing you want, publicized that you did this. And the way not to have it publicized is not to do it in the first place. It's trouble for the prosecution. I don't know that it's prosecutorial misconduct, but it helps the defense more than it helps the prosecution for sure.
Okay. All right. Here's another one, David Schnipper. The prosecutor says, our hope is it comes to it. Your sisters actually made some overtures she might be willing to talk to us. Then Summer says, I hope she does. I pray for that all the time. Then the prosecutor says, we hope she does. She actually was talking with Chad about talking with us about before we found the bodies, just a few days before, and he talked her out of it. So apparently, he's referencing a conversation that Lori was having with Chad about perhaps speaking with prosecutors, and he talked her out of it. Is it a problem to tell a potential witness that?
That's subjective, but to jump on top of what Randy said, I don't think it, and I'm very pro-defense, obviously. I wish it could come under prosecutorial misconduct, but unfortunately, I don't think it is. I mean, it has to be sincerely very egregious in such bad faith. Like Mike Nifong of the Duke Lacrosse in 2006, that's what comes up to me with prosecutorial misconduct. Now, that was, extremely prosecutorial misconduct, but it can't really just kind of be on the fence for prosecutorial misconduct. It's got to be pretty egregious and bad faith and very deceitful and really almost trying to coerce a witness.
All right. Ecleynne, you're up. The prosecutor says, we were able to put them in jail with a high bail on these lower charges and put together a case. Now our goal is to have such a strong case that when she has competent counsel, I don't know if you know this, her attorney has never handled a felony before. And Summer goes, Then the prosecutor says he's never done any meaningful criminal work at all. And he doesn't know what he's doing. He's a nice guy.
Why? Why is this conversation happening? And I think in regards to this case, you have to look at it in the totality of the circumstances. If this was a no-name case, if we were somewhere else and this was regular facts, I get it. But the fact that we have the most ridiculous facts, like it's a Netflix special waiting to happen, for the prosecution to make these types of missteps, it is prosecutorial misconduct. You know that it's going to be under a microscope. So why would you do these things? She's just a witness. Ask her the questions and get out of there.
All right, who's up? Randy. The prosecutor says it is a death penalty case in Idaho. Then Summer says, are you planning to ask that for them, or do you not want to? The prosecutor says, we sure hope we don't. A lot of that will depend on her.
So Ecleynne said the comment of the night, which is, why are they having a conversation? This is not a buddy-buddy conversation. This is a lawyer who wants to know what is the witness going to say. The question from the prosecutor should be, what did you know? What did you see? What can you say? What will you testify to? And then the prosecutor should be the one saying, mm-hmm, and taking notes. And then he goes to trial.
What's really interesting here, Randy, is that this is kind of like the prelude before the interview. During the interview, he leaves the room, and the investigators do the actual interview. This is before the actual interview. So I've got another one here. The prosecutor says he's great if he has someone else to do something for him, but he himself, and he's speaking about Chad, I believe, is a wimpy person. And at the time they were like, this is all her, like how she is manipulating this guy. But then once we dug into that was the beginning, as we're like starting to get facts. We've got more facts like, oh, again, I'm not going to pull punches if I have to go to trial, but these ideas came from him.
What's happening
David?
here?
I mean,
Or Randy, anyone who's going to go.
I mean, all you do is you just add the comment from the prosecutor and say, and can you say that when you get to court? It's basically like he's saying what he wants her to say.
Yeah. The only questions who, what, where, why, when, how. That's it. That's it. That is it. And the fact that he left the room and let the real questions happen is a problem. All of it.
Hey,
together.
come teach my law school. Come teach my law school class. That's how you.
I got you.
Well, you don't want to be in there for the interview because then you could end up being a witness, right? Now, all right, David, what do you think? What do you think of that last little bit?
I mean, I agree with Randy and Ecleynne, but at the end of the day, the judge is the almighty. Is a judge going to feel that this comes as a prosecutorial misconduct, even though it's kind of Bush League and how he handled this? But I'm not so sure the judge is going to excuse this prosecutor. He may have a word with him or chastise him or not, but I don't think he's going to take him off this case because he didn't handle himself correctly. And I just don't. I don't think it falls under the egregious part of prosecutorial misconduct where he's going to be taken off the case. That's just my subjective opinion.
All right, what happens now with the lawyers in the case? All right, there's the prosecutor. The prosecutor's been accused of prosecutorial misconduct by the defense. Meanwhile, he's calling Lori Vallow's attorney incompetent. So how does the rest of the trial kind of go between these attorneys from this point forward?
Terrible. I don't like.
They're not having lunch.
I don't like.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, he just be like.
All right, we're going to go Ecleynne first. Go, Ecleynne. Then Randy, then David.
I don't like the type of precedent this is setting. I don't like prosecutors to make opening statements and then leave the room before questioning. This is a problem. That is why it's prosecutorial misconduct. He wasn't in the room when the real questions happened. There was no reason for him to give a soliloquy of his thought process and his work product. That was wrong. If any other prosecutor did that, they probably wouldn't have a bar card.
Randy, you're up.
Yeah, this it may not be, like David said, it may not rise to the level of, he's going to get recused for prosecutorial misconduct, but this is what's shaking confidence in our legal system. It's what we see in all the cases that are up front and in the news today that, people don't trust law enforcement. And this is why, this is not giving the public confidence that when you're in a room and you're representing the government, the state, the people, you're supposed to say, tell me what happened, and I'll decide whether you will be a good witness for us or not. Not let me tell you what I think happened, or let me tell you what I think you should say, or anything close to that. That is just not good for our system and for the confidence that we want people to have in our system.
David?
Well, the Supreme Court has famously written the government's interest in prosecution, it's not that it shall win the case, but justice shall be done. All we ask is for a fair and impartial playing field, fairness. I just had a case where a prosecutor did something that I felt was egregious, and I brought it up and thought it was prosecutorial misconduct. And some prosecutors are dirty, and it is what it is. And we have to deal with that. And, being defense counsel, we don't have the resources and the government resources, the never-ending money that they have. Our offices aren't with the judges every day.
Wait, David,
we're behind the
are you
eight ball.
telling me you don't have the money? Look at the suit you're wearing. That's like, what, $1,500 suit you're wearing? There's no prosecutor wearing a suit like that.
I'm just trying to be like Randy Kessler. That's all I'm trying to
Yes.
do.
Okay, we all are. We all are.
All right, all right.
All right. When we come back, speaking of fairness, the defense attorneys in the George Floyd case are saying prosecutors are not playing fair, and they want a big change to that trial. We'll talk about it when we return. It is obviously going to be one of the biggest trials in my career at Court TV, the murder trial for George Floyd. There are 4 defendants in this case. I'll put them up there. You recognize them all, right? All 4 former Minneapolis police officers, all charged in the case involving the death of George Floyd. And we've seen the video. We have talked about this time and time again, and we'll continue to talk about it. Well, right now it's all set. March 8th is the trial date. March 8th, 2021, cameras inside the courtroom, microphones inside the courtroom, gavel-to-gavel coverage right here on your front row seat to justice. We're set. Judge wants it to go full steam ahead, right? Not exactly. Now we've got motions from 2 of the 4 defendants saying, time out. We don't want this trial in March. We need a delay. And here's the reason why. Let me put it up on the screen. This is what they're alleging, that there are over 15,000 pages of information that was received late, 4 months late. Discovery was turned over in flash drives, PDF files, and compact discs. What? Compact discs? I'm surprised they didn't fax everything over. And most files are not searchable or in any discernible order. What they are alleging is that the information has been haystacked, and we'll see if our experts know what that term is, shuffled like a deck of cards. Their paralegals have spent hundreds of hours trying to organize the material. The prosecution has over 60 law enforcement personnel on the case and numerous attorneys, and they're just not playing fair. That's why it should be delayed. Let's bring back in our think tank. To me, this sounds like one of those nasty civil litigations where both sides are just sticking it to each other with the discovery. Here's your discovery, and they throw the papers at them. Are they playing fair here, David? Prosecutors?
Absolutely. Hell no, they're not playing it fair. Absolutely, 100% not. Look, the George Floyd situation is very delicate to all of us, right? But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what anybody is charged with or who they are. Everybody deserves a fair process, a fair playing field, and an impartial process. And if they're 4 months late and they're haystacking, and it is thousands upon thousands of pages they're going through that shouldn't be there, then no, they absolutely deserve to have the trial date to be postponed. Also, I read that they're having trouble getting expert witnesses to because of the global impact. Everybody deserves a fair process and a fair trial, and it does sound like that. And I'm hoping the judge does delay the trial, especially for Chauvin. He's the one he's a murder trial. I think he wants his in December, and the Mr. Thao wants his in I think July. I think that's fair and reasonable, to be honest with you. If that it's shown that what the prosecution did was a Bush League tactic in forwarding over the discovery packages.
Randy, have you ever been haystacked?
Oh, it's the worst thing you can do, right? You get all that, and then really you just turn around and send it all back and say, you show me where this is. And you walk into court with boxes of documents and you say, Judge, I challenge them to find where April 2017 tax return is. It's crazy. I think David's exactly right. They deserve a fair trial, innocent or guilty. You're innocent until proven guilty in America. And, if it was a civil case, the delay would hurt the victims, in fact, because they couldn't get a recovery. But in a criminal trial, these guys are off the street. There's not a lot of harm, except we don't get closure as fast as we want. But yeah, you don't want anybody coming back after the fact and saying, had we been able to find the document that was exculpatory, we would have won. So we need a new trial. And then the whole can of worms gets opened again. Let's do it once. Let's do it right.
Speaking of exculpatory, Ecleynne Mercy, there's another issue that Tou Thao has, and he's filed this And he's talking about receiving finally in discovery after the probable cause hearing what they believe to be exculpatory information. Let me put it up on the screen. Dr. Baker, who performed the autopsy in the case, right? The medical examiner, defined the mechanism of death as Floyd's heart and lungs stopped due to the combined effects of his health problems as well as the exertion and restraint involved in Floyd's interaction with the police. Here's the big word, prior to being on the ground. They've got a report from the FBI saying that Dr. Baker told them that the cause of death, all the circumstances are involved what happened before he was on the ground, which takes the knee on the neck out of play for cause of death, according to this FBI report that was just turned over after the probable cause hearing. Big picture this for me, Ecleynne. How much of a problem could this potentially be for the prosecution?
Not really. I have that often. I get discovery after the probable cause hearing often. It's normal.
But wait. But discovery that basically says Chauvin's knee on the neck had nothing to do with the death of George Floyd.
Yeah, as long as it's given, this is where we live. As long as it's given before trial, during a reasonable time before trial, then it's still a fact question.
Right.
We have
but,
that. It's still
all
a
right. Let me
fact
be more specific. The jury is going to hear this. So is this a problem for the prosecution when they're actually trying the case and the jury hears that his heart and lungs stopped due to the combined effects of his health problems, as well as the exertion and restraint involved in Floyd's interaction with the police prior to being on the ground?
Yeah, well, that goes to credibility. It's the same credibility. Chauvin was a law enforcement officer. The person who wrote the report was a law enforcement officer. This is a fact question that's going to be for the jury to decide whether it was beforehand or whether a whole knee to a grown man's neck while it's being videotaped, and we can hear him crying, not because of his heart problem prior to, but crying because there's a whole knee on his neck. And that's why he died. But I think it's a fact question for the jury.
All right, David Schnipper, would this go in the column of bad facts for the prosecution? And how can they get out from under it?
Well, it depends how credible it is. It's definitely something for the jury, but I think the totality of the situation with his health, I think I read somewhere, and I don't know how much merit this is. Did he have fentanyl in his system? What were his health problems? I mean, this report that comes out, how credible is it? If there's something that can be leverage it, that can be objectively factual and show that to the jury, then that would potentially have an issue for the prosecution. But it kind of reminds me of the whole skull cap theory. If somebody is already injured or something, and then there's some, reckless or negligence or malicious intent done to them, then they're still could be found guilty. So at the end of the day, it's going to be interesting to see, how all this is presented to the entire jury.
Randy, this is going to be a state witness. This is the one who performed the autopsy. And according to the FBI, he is telling them that the cause of death had nothing to do with him being on the ground with a knee on his neck.
Yeah, and most of our viewers are too young to remember Perry Mason, but this is a chance for defense to have their Perry Mason moment, right? Ladies and gentlemen, we've all seen the knee on the neck video thousands of times. Everyone knows that that's what happened and that's what caused the death. Well, ladies and gentlemen, would it surprise you to know that the prosecution had a witness that said that that's not the cause, and the prosecution didn't even turn that evidence over until late in the game. Ladies and gentlemen, you can't always believe everything you read and see on TV. We have the smoking gun. Here it is. You got to play it up. It's got to be powerful, and you've got to have an open-minded jury that has not already reached a decision. That's an issue in this case with so much video and so much airtime on this case. If you have a jury with an open mind, this is great for the defense.
All right. Ecleynne, again, this is going to be a huge case in 2021. What do you think the jury is going to focus on? Are they going to focus on an expert talking about cause of death and potential causes of death? Or are they going to look at a video and say, you can't do that?
It's the video. It's the video, and I feel that the prosecution has to bring in experts on the proper way of how to conduct yourself as a law enforcement officer. It's going to actually not just be an indictment against Chauvin, but just the police department in and of itself, to allow him to thrive in the department when we know his history of violence to private citizens. So I really think that the prosecution has a really strong case. I just hope that they don't allow the public, the media, to allow them to just really diminish, the evidence that they do have, which is a whole video of the snuff film.
When we come back, we're going to take you on the docket. We got a story out of Florida involving a killer clown. That's next. On the docket tonight, a case that is 30 years old from Florida. Back in 1990, a woman answers the door and gets shot and killed by a clown. Now, 30 years later, a suspect has been arrested and we're getting ready for a trial. Take a look.
It started out as a typical day for the Warren family living on this quiet street in Wellington, Florida, an equestrian community just north of Miami.
That morning, I do remember we were eating breakfast. Nice, calm Saturday, I believe it was.
Joe Ahrens was 21 years old at the time. He will remember that Saturday for the rest of his life. It was May 26, 1990. A clown carrying balloons and flowers came to the Ahrens door. Joe's mom, Marlene Ahrens Warren, reached for the flowers and was fatally shot twice in the face.
It was one of the worst days of my life.
Ahrens heard the gunfire and ran to find his mother in a pool of blood. He saw the clown walk away and disappear into a white car, but had no clue who the killer was, and neither did police. The case would go cold for decades. Then, finally, after 27 years, a break. Advanced DNA testing led authorities to Ecleynne Warren.
Testing has evolved over time, and there were apparently some pieces of evidence that they wanted to re-examine, and they sent it to an FBI lab. And it's unclear which part of that led to the arrest, but something stuck. And that's how they were able to make the arrest.
Ecleynne Warren was living in Virginia. She was arrested and charged with first-degree murder for the shooting death of Joe Ahrens' mother, Marlene Warren.
I could not grieve because there was no closure in the case.
Authorities suspected Sheila was having an affair with Marlene's husband, Michael Warren. Michael and Sheila eventually married in 2002. She was living with him at the time of her arrest. The trail that led investigators to Ecleynne Warren contained many twists. One of them, a deathbed confession from John Moran. A family friend, John Moran passed away, but before he died, he shared a secret with his son, John Moran Jr.
My father told me everything that happened before he died. I knew where the car was, I knew who planned it, I knew where the gun was at.
John Moran Sr. worked with Michael Warren, who was married to the victim. Warren was questioned by police but never charged in his wife's murder. He was a used car dealer who was later arrested on charges of grand theft, odometer, tampering, and racketeering. Warren's friend, John Moran, told his son before he died that Warren may have had something to do with his wife's death.
On his deathbed, he told me that car would get me anything I ever wanted from Mike Warren.
Moran Jr. told detectives that Michael Warren tried to bribe him. Investigators followed up on details Moran Jr. gave them, including information about what could have been the killer clown's getaway car. John Moran Jr. said his dad told him where some of the evidence was kept. Police went diving in a Palm Beach canal where Moran Jr. says he and his father helped dump the evidence. However, investigators did not find the clown costume or murder weapon. Without that evidence, police can't make a case for murder against Ecleynne Warren, according to their lawyer.
I do know enough about this case, not from the discovery process, but from my knowledge of the case, that she's innocent.
All right. This is a very old case. Those are difficult to prosecute, but apparently there was some DNA breakthrough. And then obviously you have the relationships here. You've got Michael Warren in the middle of all of it. It's his wife who's shot and killed, and it's his wife who's arrested. Let's bring back in the think tank. Randy Kessler, you do a lot of work in family law, so this is about relationships. How do you see the role of Michael Warren in this trial, in this case? I mean, on the one hand, his wife was shot and killed. On the other hand, his wife is charged with his wife's murder.
Boy, it's sort of like we talk about a lot. You don't really need to have a motive in a criminal case, but the jury wants to always know why. And the question why is answered here. She wanted to marry him. She had to get rid of his wife. As far as what does he do? He's on tender ground there because, if he's complicit and he knew about it, why didn't he come forward? And they're going to look at him and does he want to be the next person charged? I think he's, going to act as surprised as anybody if she turns out to be the one who did it.
Ecleynne, how do you see this whole relationship thing? And I wonder what the jury will be thinking. I mean, if I was in the jury box, I'd want to hear from Michael Warren because he's literally in the middle of all of it, right? In between these two women. One woman is accused of killing the other woman, and there he is right in the middle.
It's like a Lifetime movie plot. It's crazy. And like the questions, we have deathbed confessions. Like this is like a bar, like this is a bar exam, like essay question. I mean, we have to figure out the validity of the deathbed confession, make sure that he actually said it. Then we have a car, but we don't have all the stuff. So it's intriguing. I am ready to see what happens. I don't know what to expect. And we still don't know who did it. So it's like a Perry Mason episode. We won't find out until the closing arguments. And I am here for all of it.
Yeah, absolutely. We know a clown did it and got away in the clown car, and we pulled a car out of the water, but no murder weapon, no clown suit, David Schnipper. How much of a problem will it be if you don't have the clown suit and you don't have the weapon?
Well, I want to talk about clowns. We have famous clowns. Ronald McDonald, Bozo the Clown with the grand prize game, who unfortunately just passed in 2018, and John Wayne Gacy, the serial killer in the 1970s, who used to dress as a clown. So, Ecleynne took the words out of my mouth with a Lifetime movie. And the guy's a cheesy used car salesman. I mean, you can't even make that up. He spent 3.5 years for racketeering. So he's got some a past with him. Obviously, you would think, from the naked eye that he knew about it. But it's all about the DNA, and it's unbelievable as years go on and on, how great technology is that they have some sort of DNA evidence. And she was a suspect 30 years ago when this happened. She was 27 years old. The deceased was 40. So, the used car salesman was having an affair allegedly with a younger mistress who he ended up marrying in 2002. I mean, come on now. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that obviously he had to know something. But to me, it all comes down to the evidence and the DNA evidence, which is so powerful as long as law enforcement, the FBI, was able to get it legally by the law and by the rules. And if the DNA evidence, shows that she did it, then I would think that the jury is going to find her guilty.
All right.
And
we'll continue.
Vinny, I know you like jury you like jury views, so you're going to watch this one for a jury view of the clown.
Yeah, exactly. We'll bring a lineup out, right? All right. We're going to continue to track this one. We have a trial date, folks. There it is, April 9th, 2021. So it'll be, 31 years after it happened. But, of course, Court TV, we are on top of it. When we come back, time to hear from you, the 13th juror. Big question today. 2020 has been a horrible year. But what was the biggest injustice of 2020? Posted that question and specifically instructed you, no politics. So, of course, 80% of the answers were politics. But we'll give you the other 20% when we come back. All right, 13th juror question today, posting on social media, was a big question. It was like, this is 2020, terrible year, but what was the biggest injustice of 2020? And, those of you that saw the post, I mean, thousands and thousands of responses, but I specifically said, no politics. And I guess because I said that, only 80% of you responded with political answers. But as always on the show, we kind of stay closer to law, crime, and justice, not so much into the political world. So we begin with our 13th juror comment of the day. Biggest injustice of 2020. Susanna says, George Floyd, because I watched a man with a fake bill get killed by a policeman. He was begging for help, and his mother, horrible. Randy Kessler, let me ask you on this one. Were you surprised the way this whole thing took hold, not only in the United States, but around the world, and became such an incredibly large and big and impactful story?
I'm not surprised because it's not unique enough, unfortunately. It's just the culmination. And I think the world was just waiting, America was just waiting for a case that really captured the facts in a quick video clip. We're now a world of 20-second video clips. There's TikTok, there's tweets. You can now see in a few seconds the travesty that's going on. And even if that wasn't the cause of death, this video has convicted this officer. And it is the top video, and it is, I think, the top injustice. I agree with Susanna.
All right, Ming says Breonna Taylor. Let me ask you, Ecleynne Mercy, do you think that story's over? Do you think that case is over? Do you think in 2021 there's going to be more discussion about Breonna Taylor and what happened there?
I do. I think that it was just it was morally repugnant what happened in that case from start to finish. Just how law enforcement dropped the ball and then kicked it. It's just sad. My friend and I was just talking today, and she basically said that even a righteous person, righteous people have and can have and do die with the law in your hands. So it's like, even when you're right, Breonna Taylor did nothing wrong. Law enforcement took her life, and she's being convicted every day. It's just sad, and just makes you just really weep for the country and the state that we're in, that even in my home right now, as a Black woman, I can be subjected to cops coming in and just taking over my liberties because they just felt like they could. And it just needs to stop. It just needs to stop. So I don't believe that Breonna Taylor's story is done. I do believe we're going to continue saying her name. We have said her name since her life was taken, and we're going to continue doing it until justice is served.
Jay Purple tonight. Ahmaud Arbery losing his life because others took the law into their own hands. Also that the police initially lied to his mom about why he was dead. David Schnipper, I look at that case, and the one question that still hasn't been answered is why the video was rolling. Why was someone taking pictures of all this? Do you have a theory on that?
Well, I'm glad you brought this to my attention. I grew up in that area, and it bothers me to the core. This one bothers me more than all of them because it's not how it should be, and it's not the people that are represented in that area where I'm from. And it was just a full-on lynching is what it looked like. And you had there was a third party that was also charged, and I think he was the one that was rolling the tape. We're going to find out, but it's such a bad look. There's no excuse for what happened. Nothing. And again, like Randy said, like Ecleynne said, I mean, we live in a world where video is powerful. I mean, how extremely powerful video is. In this young gentleman who grew up in that area, didn't deserve that. And I just can't see how the father and son duo, they have very good legal counsel. Frank Hoag's representing the older McMichael. He's a hell of an attorney. But I just can't see how that they're going to, convince a jury that this wasn't just a full-on lynching. It's sad. It bothers me that that's where I'm from, and it really does to a core. But I agree with the 13th juror. Also, I just wanted to add, for me, one of the biggest injustices was the death of Kobe Bryant this year, which to me is it still bothers me to this day, and the shockingness of that. And it was as shocking as the Titanic and 9/11. And I just want to throw in there for Kobe Bryant.
We've got one from Chris tonight who writes, Kyle Rittenhouse being charged with a crime. Randy, have about 20 seconds here. Have you ever seen a case as divisive as the Kyle Rittenhouse, the 17-year-old who shot and killed 2 people in Kenosha, Wisconsin?
I mean, unfortunately, I think that's America today. You know, that someone is outraged that he's being charged. I think there are probably more people that would be outraged if he wasn't charged. But, you know, we're a divided country, and I hope we get less divided. May 2021 bring us back closer together.
Absolutely. As always, fantastic
Amen.
job by Randy Kessler, David Schnipper, Ecleynne Mercy.
Thank you.
We'll see a whole heck of a lot more of you in 2021. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a good day.
All right, folks, that's it for me tonight. We'll be back tomorrow night. Big show tomorrow night. We're going to look ahead at the biggest trials coming up in 2021 right here on Court TV. Have a great night, and don't forget to hug the kids.